Warning, this video contains minor spoilers, you have been warned. A boy meets girl story in a world under attack by dragons. Well, it doesn't get any better than that, does it? No wait, let me make it better. A crazy maniac girl harassing a poor high school student boy who just wants to live a normal life, despite being in a world under threat from dragons. A disappointingly short VN, like seriously, very short. The time it took me to read was only 1 hour and 59 minutes. On the other hand, VN Davis' average recorded playtime is around 3 hours and 4 minutes. But I gotta say, it was a really fun 2 hours. Why? Next section. The unfortunate Sigma male, the insane uncontrollable dragon, and the comedic mother who is the Sun-kun. Sun-kun? Musuko-kun? A mother that wishes to have sexual relations with her own son, so I don't care what the f you call it. This MC is apparently nameless, and is actually an outstanding character. He's cynical, straightforward, and very straightforward, and a bit of a tsundere. Oh god, a male tsundere. Dude gets pissed off quite easily, and I promise you, he will drop the F-bomb. A lot. Because he's constantly getting annoyed by this maniac. Sadly, she doesn't have a name, so we need to give her one. And that name is... Yes, you guessed it correctly. Lala Saitalin Develuk. I swear to f***ing god, the moment I saw this character, I immediately thought of Lala. Anyway, resemblance aside, this heroine here is also a very direct character. She knows exactly what she wants, and she'll get it by any means necessary. She is the epitome to the quote saying that violence is never the answer, but rather a question, and the answer is f***ing yes. As a result, it gives even more personal security issues for the MC, because what happens when you mix violence and lust into the same character? You get the R word that rhymes with tape. Yes, fellas, we have reverse tape in this VN. I swear, if the genders were reversed in this story, this arrogate would be very controversial, but I digress. This heroine is arrogant sometimes due to her dragon strength, so she would look down on her opponents, which doesn't seem good for this character, who has a thing for the MC as well. I'm not joking. This lolly has a thing for her own son. Hey man, I'm all for the incest is wincest thing, but at least make the mom look like a mommy. You know, like these snacks. Anyway, the mom is the general that leads a military force against the dragons, but she's kind of useless at it. She's very chaotic. There is one characteristic of her in VNDB saying that she is eccentric, which means unconventional and slightly strange. No, that is a mild way of saying it. How I would describe her? She's just straight up f***ing weird. And the general gets extremely jealous, like full on yandere mode, when the heroine acts all lovey-dovey with the MC due to her motherly love for her own son. How yandere? Bring in mecha suits from her task force to kill the FMC, with she herself joining the combat in person. As I've said, she's chaotic. So it becomes a mess when she's involved most of the time. But it's fun. It's dumb fun. A pretty hilarious character. This is how the main menu page looks like, and you will only get access to the CG gallery and recollection pages after completing at least one route in the game. For further specificity, the recollection page here will bring you to... Yes! Now, you might notice that there is no settings page here. It's because you could only access it through the right mouse click that brings up this pop-up menu, which could also be brought up in-game, and I appreciate the developers adding hotkey shortcuts to each commands here. As for the settings page, you get all these stuff: the basic settings, text settings, volume, system information, and more shortcuts. Notice that there isn't a page for voice settings, and that's because this eroge has no voice acting. The UI is most of the time ADV style, with some NVL moments. Since you have nameless characters, there won't be any names that are put above the text. So in order to distinguish on which character said what, the size of the text box itself will change. For example, this text box will show the MC's words, while this text box will show what the FMC is saying. Good enough of a way to separate who says what, and not leave the reader confused. What else that doesn't leave the reader confused is the English translation. No errors were spotted in my experience, so good job on that. Okay, the story is not linear per se because it has multiple endings despite having only one heroine and how short it is. There are like 4 endings, 2 bad. Yes, it's no surprise that there are bad endings because this is Nitro Plus we're talking about. 1 normal and 1 true end, and all of them are decided by 2 choices that occur throughout the eroge. There's also a prologue that proceeds automatically in your first playthrough, but you could choose to skip it in your next run when these 2 choices pop up. So the story is romance. Maybe. Well, it's actually half comedy and half romance with the addition of action that occurs multiple times throughout the VN in a modern world mixed in with some fantasy. The first half of the story is legit comedy, and then it gets into romance through 2 kinds of action in the second half. The first kind is that where you battle for dear life, and the second kind is when you battle in bed. Not that there's anything wrong with that when it's executed quite well, of course. Plus, the comedic moments are pretty hilarious, backed up with very interesting writing. And speaking of which, the fact that there are so many F-bombs being dropped, it just works. Sure, it's used a bit too much for my liking, and it makes the MC look like an ass, which he is. However, it gives great character interactions. The harmony between these 3 characters is outstanding. As for the MC's character development, I would say that it's rushed. Say that you choose a route that doesn't want to do anything with the FMC. You will still develop feelings for her, but without good reason. It just comes off randomly. Pacing is one cause for this problem. It starts off quite okay in the beginning, but then it becomes chaotic as you read further. It's not bad, but not good either. Like, you understand what's going on and how the story progresses, but at the same time, it could have been polished like way better. But this is of course limited by the length of this eroge. The action scenes are good enough to follow and there are CGs to help you visualize, but the story becomes something like a go with the flow plot in the second half. As for the endings, well, the 2 bad endings are pretty direct and short, with one ending being more impactful than the other due to the character involved. That being said, the effect of the normal and the true ending are far greater than both the bad endings, which could only happen after a certain twist in the plot occurring somewhere in the orgasm phase in the story. Speaking of the orgasm phase, it's something like you read in a cultured manhwa, like you have reached a peak here, the climax, then you have a short break afterwards, then immediately straight to round 2. And that round 2 will be the best sex of your life, which in this case is true for the FMC. Oh yeah, the sex. There are 4 scenes. The tags are fella, cowgirl, doggy, doggy with spanking, backdoor, and paizuri. One more tag though. Reverse assault. There was no consent from the MC in that particular scene. No sir. Being the thirsty degenerate that I am, I would welcome it. Because who wouldn't want to smash that body, am I right? And if you want to disagree, think about it. She's a dragon. Strong as you can't do shit as a human. Gigak says to not stick your dick in crazy. In this case, crazy sticks it in for you. So might as well just give in, accept your fate, embrace the warmth, and release your seeds. Okay, jokes aside, with reference to the length of the eroge itself, I would say that the H scenes are pretty long, as in the ratio of the length of the H scenes to the length of the VN. They're fun and interesting enough to read, but not engaging enough to beat. There is no voice acting, which is okay, but in this case, there aren't any sound effects either. Nothing! The only thing you'll hear during the action is the background OST. If it's like that, it might as well be muted because there are no sliding, no squirting, no nothing. I mean, there are sound effects for the rest of the VN, especially the fighting scenes. But what happened to the H scenes? What the hell, Nitro Plus? H scenes are action-packed battles too, you know. Still, you gotta read them. You get one before the first choice, one after it, and two more that depend on the second choice. So a route guide is in order. Before the route guide, I want to give a recommendation to you guys to finish up the 2 bad endings before proceeding to the normal and true endings, specifically because of how short and direct they are. In my opinion, it's like to get them out of the way so that you can fully enjoy the experience in the normal and true endings. Speaking of which, I won't tell you which of these endings is better because they each give a different kind of feeling, and to me, they're quite equal in their own sense, so I think it's best to just let your gut decide. And with that, Akeno, route guide please. Let's get the bad stuff first. And the main problems that I have in this VN are from the technical stuff. Like if you try to load a save through this button, it will freeze. So you need to use the L button on your keyboard to load something. A real L move there, Nitro Plus. Besides that, in my experience, if you try to exit the game through the escape button and then you suddenly just change your mind to continue playing the game, it will also freeze. Now, I would highly advise to have your task manager on in order to end the task if necessary. So don't play on full screen mode if you have only one monitor in your setup, because the task manager won't even appear and then your computer is full. But if you have multiple monitors, then be my guest. Though make sure that your task manager is on a different monitor. You also need to have your computer on a Japanese locale if you want to play this VN. Putting aside the technical issues, the only real beef I have with this VN is the fun scenes, which are great in writing, but poor in storytelling. It tells me that they had to cut the budget for the H scenes, which I think they mainly used for the OSTs in this VN. Which I gotta say, the music in this story is great. It's pretty amazing. It's better than what I expected for this very short eroge. Well, based on my experience with Nitro Plus so far, they don't dumb down on the OSTs. But what I would really play this VN for is the interaction between characters, which is the aspect that I look up for the most in a story, that is also supported by the humor. And with the existence of this character, it's pretty much amazing. I guess it's a good thing that the developers made her into a lolly, because an actual mommy figure won't fit her character. A chaotic, alcoholic nut job. The developers knew that you wouldn't go for a mommy with this kind of personality. It's not mature, it's not seductive, it doesn't want to make you get stepped on. So I understand the developer's decision on her character. And yeah, I appreciate that. Anyway, time to wrap it up. All in all, Dra Koi is a very fun experience despite being a very short one. It's not the size that matters, it's how you use it. So the Degen score is 8.5. If you have some free time to spare and just want to look for some dumb fun that just works even when being over the top of a VN, then yeah, Dra Koi is it. And that's all from me. Hope you guys can like and subscribe if the content is degenerate enough. Later, gents.